Welcome. Hello. 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 See, trying to work it out. What's going on, man? Good to see you. You're on mute.
I can't do two things at once. So I'm trying to put this on the big screen. Darwin's behind me. And so how are things?
Things are well. Things are well. Andre was on here earlier. She just dropped off. I think she was trying to unmute herself. So we'll see.
Gotcha. I saw the message. I realized we're recording, but I saw the message about Ed. Wow, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. He said they think that might be the actual root cause of his thumb issue is some irregularity with his lungs.
Oh my.
So, but to get in with everything he has to do, he's probably looking at somewhere between 3 and 6 months before
That's crazy.
you actually get to seeing what the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, when you just say that out loud, that's
Yep. So
I've got a friend who's a doctor, and her husband has a non-something melanoma, and but he's the long and short of it is, in order to get him seen by a doctor, they had to have him admitted for, yeah, they like smashed his foot with a hammer or something, right? I mean, they had to do something else to get him admitted to the hospital. But once he got admitted, then the doctors all have office hours, and so he got in, prayerfully, he got in with under like 3 weeks or something. But but they had to go around.
yeah, we've had some recent experiences with trying to get people seen, um, and everybody has wonderful services. They're just not eager to allow you to use them.
Yeah, exactly. Got the best healthcare system money could buy. You just got to have the money to buy it.
Yeah. All right. I think Andrea has made her way back. Hey. Welcome. Glad you can make it.
Me too.
That's good stuff. I saw you trying to unmute, and then I did not see you again. so I'm glad to see that you're able to not only come back but be unmuted so you can be heard. We appreciate your addition to the program.
Thanks so much.
And persistence. I'm still trying to switch over to another screen, and we might be done with the call before I get done with it.
Yeah, going from your phone or tablet to a TV. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not
So
ever
he's
figured
trying
that out. So
you can do it. I
I'm
do it all
sure.
the time. I do it all the time, but I can tell you, I don't do it by following their instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, now see, that's helpful.
nah. Yeah, if you were thinking, hey, I'm doing everything it's saying, it's still not working, it must be me. No, they're not telling you the right things to do.
Oh,
There are
see,
several things that need to happen. Yeah, there are several things that need to happen. Yeah, so it depends on your TV.
I can't stand the cyber gods. I can't
Yeah,
stand.
it depends on the TV, because each of them use different protocols. So uh, if you have a wire that cuts past all that, you can go
Yeah.
from, you know what I mean?
A
You can just,
wire.
yeah,
Okay.
you can
See
go,
that.
yeah,
How
you can go from your computer with an HDMI and go into the TV with an HDMI, and then you just scroll through and hit input until you find your computer. That's easy.
oh,
But that
yeah.
whole mirroring, screen mirror,
Yeah.
yeah, it works wonderfully as long as you
If
have an
it were.
yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. So we'll get started here. We have one more joining with us, our tried and true few. Hey, welcome. Greetings and salutations.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So since we are recording, so there is a purpose. If you're wondering, why does he go on and do that? There's a purpose.
I'm assuming this is laying the groundwork for something to come. Is what I'm assuming.
Everything I do lays the groundwork for something else. until until I got enough ground that I don't have to work anymore.
Come on, somebody.
Yeah, so
Oh shoot.
yeah, I'll edit out all the stuff when we post the stuff and
That's good.
just leave the nuggets. But it is a lot easier to go through the recording with at least one other person. Or otherwise, you're just talking to yourself in a mirror.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't have the same effect.
I haven't found a way to like myself that much. That's just awkward. I've done it. I've done it. It's the complete definition of horrible. It's just I can't. Whew. Big old full screen. You're just looking at yourself, talking to yourself. I've
Oh
done it more
shoot.
than once because you got to do what you got to do to lay the groundwork for something else. All right. So today we are talking about this concept, some terms we've probably heard before, things we're familiar with, uh, diversity and belonging. And a lot of times they are grouped together, and sometimes they're not even thought that they should be in the same place. So there's a wide range between these two concepts. It is possible to have one without the other. So if you're familiar with DEI work, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. At the Care Learning Partnership, what we work with, we have a couple other letters with ours. So we deal with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility. So DEIBA. And there are other organizations that have even another letter where they throw on the J, and that would be for justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, and justice. All of these things have to do with the type of culture you want to have and how do you reach this broad swath of people that you're trying to work with. But we're going to just look at two of those, diversity and belonging, because those seem to be somewhat confused between the other letters that we find ourselves accessible to. As I've stated in all these recordings, they were put together with the idea of organizations, specifically PTO organizations. How do they engage with parents? How can they retain parents? How can they get more volunteers? All of those types of things. And while it's focused on that, as you've seen from other sessions in this series, there are a lot of nuggets, whether you find yourself leading a PTO organization or just trying to raise your kids or lead a church or start a nonprofit. Wherever you find yourself, there are some nuggets in there. We've designed it with that. But if there are some specifics or some anecdotes that I share that you're like, well, why is he talking about a PTO? Just get that out of the way first. Now you know. All right, so let's get into what we're doing here. We will check in and then we will look at the definition and scope of the two concepts. And then we'll look at the impact on organizational culture. We'll look at some outcomes and benefits. We'll look at practical implementation. And then we'll hear from you throughout. But at the end, just what are some of your takeaways? Some might call that a checkout. So to get us started checking in, my check-in question for us is pretty simple. There are tons of other places you could be right now instead of being here. Where else would you like to be instead of being here? Where else would you like to be if you weren't here?
Okay, I can name a lot of places. Oh, hello everyone. My name's Lisette. And I actually would like to be in Hawaii with Anj.
Yay!
Nice, nice. In Hawaii with Andrea.
Me
Wonderful.
too.
Andrea would like to be in Hawaii with Andrea as well. Nice, nice. Anyone else? Where would you like to be if you weren't here?
Okay. This is Andrea. Salutations, everybody. I would like to be in Hawaii with Lisette for sure. But if I can't be there, I would settle for being in Philadelphia with my friend. So
Ah, nice, nice. In Philly with
consolation
friends. Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Anyone else?
Well, I think we should stay with the Hawaii theme. I think the next meeting we have should just be in Hawaii. So let's just next week we'll just be there. We'll be broadcasting from Hawaii. It can be Oahu, Maui, the Big Island, whatever. But so I like this theme. I like this theme. Yeah,
that works. That works. I think if I wasn't here, I would like to be at a baseball game. Weather has been very nice out here. It's good baseball weather.
Oh, really?
I cannot stand to watch baseball on TV.
It's awesome.
But going to a baseball game, smelling the hot dogs that I don't eat, sniffing the popcorn that I have to moderate, and just in the sounds and seeing you got a lot of, parents with their kids and kids seeing their idols. And I don't want to go. And San Francisco would be where we go. The A's have left. We don't have the A's anymore here in Oakland, so we got to go across the bay to the Giants. Haven't been yet. Haven't been to either stadium. But yeah, go to the Giants. It's a good stadium. It's some stadiums are better than others. It's a good stadium, but San Francisco is just nice because there's not a lot of people that don't know how to act. So there's certain fan bases that you really don't want to. Yeah, San Francisco is pretty inclusive, so you can kind of get into a sporting event, get out, enjoy your time, and log it as a good evening. So that's where I would like to be if I wasn't here.
Nice.
All right. So we checked in. So let's get into the topic a little bit. What we're going to look at, hopefully by the end of this session, you will take away a couple different things. Number one, understanding diversity and belonging in the context of how they're beneficial to us. We'll look at outcomes and benefits from intentionality on applying the stuff we've learned. And then we're going to ask you to rethink what you know about socialization, what we call something called the dominant narrative, and deconstruction and reconstruction of that narrative. We'll touch on that briefly. And hopefully you will also walk away with some practical implementation strategies for what we're doing. Diversity and belonging, right? So when we look at these two things, diversity refers to the presence of differences within a given setting. Belonging, on the other hand, is about creating an environment where individuals feel they're accepted and valued or a part of a community or an organization. So as we get into that, a question on how would you define the difference? That's the official look it up in your book definition. And I didn't read all of it because I trust that people can read for themselves. But in your experiences, whether in work or organization, or think of groups that you belong to or have been excluded from, how would you explain to someone else the difference between diversity and belonging? Anyone?
Hmm.
There we go. Ha, I'll take a stab at it. Woo, I couldn't find the little microphone thing. I apologize. So diversity is, I've got all these little icons at the bottom. Belonging is trying to figure out which one belongs to my mind. Gotcha. Yeah. So if so when I am in a environment where, let's say it's a sporting event, and I don't know much about the event. Somebody invited me to a decades ago now, a hockey game. And they had periods instead of quarters. And you know, you're like, they've got this big wall in front of us. You know, they must do something interesting, and they do. They slam pucks against it. You know, so diversity had to do with the idea that yeah, I was one of those people who came in and didn't know what was going on, and I clearly did not belong. Not for, I mean, there's a lot of reasons I didn't belong, but the biggest reason was that I had no idea what was going on. I will mention that that night they had an activity out on the ice, and I won a trip to Hawaii. I didn't have to know what was going on. I just volunteered to, to shoot a keg across the rink, and I was like, all I got to do is run this from here to there, and I'll get a trip to Hawaii. I was like, yeah, all y'all are going home tonight. Yeah, so and I did win. So
Yeah, nice. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate you sharing that. Any other thoughts, examples that come to mind?
Diversity seems to be in my head a term that is just recognizing that there are differences between whatever category you're talking about, differences in people, differences in cars, differences in churches, different build, whatever. And belonging connotes home or a feeling of welcoming to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it. No, that's good. That's good. This idea of diversity, I'll put it this way. When you're dealing with a PTO, right? I'm an educator, been an administrator. To your point, Andrea, the schools I've been an administrator of have a lot of diversity in them. There is diversity in the different stakeholders of a school. You have the board. You might have, I worked at private schools or charter schools, so you have funders. You have parents. You have educators. So those are all diverse people. Depending on how you structure your events, you can have a diverse group of parents and none of them feel like they belong to school. You can have a diverse group of students and none of them feel like they belong in the classroom. On a broader scale, that might be reaching more of us that at least we're aware of. If you think about from a societal perspective, we have abolished on today is Juneteenth, right? The holiday. So we have abolished slavery. But for us to say that those that find themselves not at the top scale of the privilege ladder feel like they belong in all categories, depending on how you identify, depending on the color of your skin, depending on where you were born. United States is full of diversity. I don't know if I want to step out on a limb and say it's full of belonging. So there are some true consequences to how we look at how these things work. There are, when I think of organizations where there are gender discrepancies in pay, whether it's sports, whether it's running companies, whether, where you have women, and though, yes, women are a part of, make up a diverse workforce. That does not mean they equally belong to the C-suite. If they're on the C-suite, that does not mean they belong to all the conversations that are had in the office. And you can just go all the way down the road on that. So that's something to keep in mind. But we need to at least look at those differences and how they interact and intersect with one another. So here's the impact on these two things, right? So diversity alone can lead to a checklist mentality. And I think that was mentioned by someone earlier on. Hey, I feel that this just means that we have these boxes checked, right? We have these different types of cars, these different types of parents, these types of organizations. It can a lot of times lead to that. Belonging emphasizes the importance of inclusion. This fosters a culture where everyone feels secure to express their true selves and participate fully. This is something that we have to understand the importance of specifically when we're reaching out to and trying to include others. A lot of people stop at diversity, but in many ways, your organization, you didn't do anything to make the organization diverse in a lot of scenarios, like a PTO. You didn't assign parents. You work at a school where there's a district. The diversity you inherited. Your job as a leader in a diverse environment is to create a culture of belonging. And so now that's where we have to look at the impact of that, then ties directly to the type of organizations we have. So if you have a basketball team at your school that is diverse, if the coach does not make everyone feel as an equal part of that team, they just have a diverse team, that's not very good. Because if you don't feel included, you don't really participate. So if you tie that to a PTO and you have all walks of life and different belief systems and all those different things, if you don't lead that in a way that doesn't just celebrate the diversity, because we have a lot of that. where we celebrate diversity. You can actually celebrate diversity and nobody feel included. So, you know, when we'll look at a little bit how you implement some of those things. Any thoughts or comments or experiences or something that comes to mind on that where you say, oh yeah, here's an example of that, or what about this?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that quickly. I'll open the floor for Lisette. But the idea is the understanding that belonging is the actual output of leadership. Diversity is the output of membership. So membership, it gives you diversity, but leadership is what gives you belonging.
I like that. That's good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Lisette, you had something?
That was good, Daryl. I was thinking in the sense of diversity being the fact, the well-known data, but belonging is what you do with it. What do you do with it? So like taking action for it, because you're right, you can find a bunch of diversity anywhere, but what do you do with it? So
That's good. That's a wonderful segue into the next thing we're talking about, which is the benefits. Definitely the benefits of both of these things. So when you look at diversity, you know, that could bring different perspectives. But without belonging, where are you going? So that's what I hear Lisette saying on this is the fact of the matter, but then what are we going to do, right? So without a sense of belonging, the benefits from diversity are lost. And when you look at the environment that you're creating, as we've stated several times on these things move as strong as the relationships that are in them. When you look at organizations, they go as far, as wide, and as deep and are successful as the well-being of the people that are in them. So I like what Daryl said about the outcomes, right? And looking at leadership and membership. Well, there's got to be some synergy there. There's got to be some connection. And so to get there, we have to look at where we're at on those different planes, right? The areas that we have to traverse to make sure that we can take us from where we're at to where we want to go on any organization. So to do that, we're going to need to, if you haven't guessed it, look at who we are and how we see the world. And a lot of that is language. This, just looking at the screens that are visible, is a diverse group, right? We have different shades, we have different genders, we have a lot of different beliefs on here. So it's a diverse group. So we got the first part down. If this group is going to do anything together, if we're going to build something, if we're going to go someplace, if we've been given a task by someplace else, maybe the school is asking us because we're a group of parents to do something, we have to find a way to implement this idea of being diverse and creating belonging. And how we go about that requires us to first take a look at ourselves. So when we think about socialization and how we've been socialized to think about different things, what is an example or a time that you can share, that you feel comfortable sharing, where diversity was more the focus than the belonging? Have you ever been in a place where that was the case? Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, and so it's funny that you should say that because when you're planning an event at a school of any size, but let's take the school. We were talking about PTOs, and I'm part of a PTO, officer in one. And so the idea of when you're planning events, you will want to make sure you get the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, senior, parents, and the students. What you actually get is going to be different than the audiences you try to attract. And then, so what happens is when you show up to the event, now you've got all the diversity you can handle. But if you do, but if you don't know any of the individuals, if you don't have a relationship, so you're looking for folks that you might have seen before, or if there are various languages being spoken, you look for individuals who speak your language or speak a language that you're interested in. You may look for someone who you met at another event or that you saw on the lunch line. I'm pro lunch line. I believe in going where the food is. Someone you chatted with when you picked up water or a cookie. I'll always go to the food. I'm just saying. Someone when you picked up a muffin at the, and so what you're doing once you arrive is either you're intentional about how you're going to develop relationships, or you're going to simply let it be guesswork. And if it is guesswork, then what you're going to do is you're going to find that, that dreaded word from the 90s, cliques begin to form, right? Because you only know the people that were there when you were picking up cookies or water, or if you're a coffee drinker, the person at the coffee, you're only going to know the people that you just ran into, or the person that almost ran into you in the parking lot, and you may or may not want to chat with them, right? And so I just wanted to reinforce what you were saying. When it comes down to it, if you're not intentional, it will always be guesswork. And if it is guesswork, it will always leave someone out. And if it is always leaving someone out, you are going to build what we would call tension. You're going to build what you would call resistance. That's the word I was looking for. So in actually having an event that doesn't have intentionality, you build resistance. You don't build community, you actually build resistance.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. Good example. Gets us in the space that we need to be. As you may or may not know, it's another way of saying that culture is created either intentionally or unintentionally. So if there's people, there's culture. So I'll post something in the chat for us to consider. Because if we're going to implement this and avoid the cliques, as Daryl said, and bring people together and not just be with the cookie line or the lunch line, the psychosocialization is the process by which everyone learns biases and prejudices, right? So socialization helps shape our identity. It's how we figure out who we are, what our beliefs are, and our perception of others. So why this is important. Think about, and if there's an example, right, where there's a practice that a lot of us have, that when people are not doing things that we're accustomed to seeing, I'll frame it this way. When you see something that you've never seen before in a context that you're familiar with, what do you call that? That person is what?
I don't know if I have a name for the person.
Sure you do. The behavior.
Do I?
I'm going to go with strange for 400, Johnny.
Yeah. Strange, weird, something's not
Different.
right with them.
Surprising.
So yeah.
Sometimes
So
it's stunning.
stunning, right? Lisette?
Different.
Different. Yeah. These are all very emotionally intelligent individuals. So yeah, when we are you know, if you saw someone driving, I knew if I paused long enough, I would think of an example that is worth sharing that people don't get offended. Some of my anecdotes are extremely offensive. uh, because they're not to people that are Cliff. And so, see, that's exactly what we're talking about. If you saw someone driving on the other side of the road, right? If you're in the United States and you saw them driving on the other side of the road, you might say they're driving on the wrong side of the road, right? Which over here, that would be correct. But some might say that that's not normal, that's not right, but it's what they're socialized to do. So when we even refer to driving over in London, right? We say they sometimes people say they drive on the wrong side of the road. They don't say they drive on the other side of the road, or the different side of the road, or the stunning side of the road, or the surprising side of the road. What a lot of people say. Most people don't say, oh, wow, they're driving on the surprise side of the road. Wow, look at that guy. They're driving on the stunning side of the road. Where I'm from, I have heard a lot of times people say they're on the wrong side of the road. And as Daryl put into the chat, wrong and right is based on context. It's based on our socialization. And so when we look at belonging, and that's why I like Daryl's comments about the cookie line and lunch line. And I got lines for everything. I think he said lunch line, but there's a cookie line, there's a lunch line, there's a burger line, there's a fry line. I just know Daryl likes lines where there's food at the end. And so when we look at that, if we're running an organization and we have new parents that are asking questions that are concerns from their past experience and how they've been socialized, if we're just accepting diverse questions, we're not prepared to give an answer that creates belonging. If our intention is to just allow all the diverse views to be shared, that's great. You have marked off that checkbox. If you want that parent or parents to follow up with you afterwards and say, hey, if you ever need any help from me, you probably want to create an answer that promotes belonging, not just diversity. So that's just an example of how that can help you there. When you look at faith-based institutions, and a visitor comes and wants to share their story or wants to participate and share their talents, that's the wrong type of music for this group. That's not how we share our experiences. That's odd, that's weird, that's unacceptable, all these types of things. Daryl.
Yeah, I was in a program where they did this activity. They took a child's puzzle, like one of those 12-piece puzzles. It's not brain surgery material right there. We're talking, it's just a 12-piece puzzle. But what they did was they took a 12-piece puzzle, turned it upside down. And so you didn't see the picture. All you saw was, the cardboard backing. And set the 12-piece puzzle out in front of, grown folk. I mean, like adult individuals, that had driver's license and bills. And asked them to put it together. And it was stunning to see how many people had difficulty figuring out what to do next. They kept asking, well, the pieces are upside down. The pieces are upside down. The pieces are upside down. There's only 12 pieces. They've all got edges and corners, right? But, and the reason for sharing it is, I'm used to what I'm used to. If I can learn to take a step back and recognize what my boundaries are and what the pieces are, then I have an opportunity to create belonging for others and myself. But the truth of the matter is, because I'm used to what I'm used to and I like what I like, I could spend 3, 5, 7 minutes arguing about why the pieces are different than the way I would expect them to be, and miss the fact that I could put the whole puzzle together in seconds because I am wanting it the way that I am used to it versus doing what's in front of me. And so I just thought that was something that would be useful in this context.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that. I think what we have to remember before we get at jumping to, so how do we implement this? The reason why I wanted to talk about this in this session is because there's a lot of times that we want to create more, we want to grow our membership, whether it's a church membership, PTO membership, people that buy French fries from our McDonald's membership, right? We want people to download our apps. We want to create membership. And there are a variety of different ways that you implement belonging to a diverse audience. And it's different between, online and in person and all those types of things. I don't want to focus on that. What I wanted to highlight just briefly is this idea of the socialization and the dominant narrative. There is a dominant narrative that our society operates from, right? That, men are bigger, faster, stronger, right? And throughout the history, the narrative has shifted based on that narrative being deconstructed and reconstructed. So there were a time certain people based on the color of their skin were not considered people. That was the dominant narrative. And that narrative was deconstructed and reconstructed. There is time where, you must be this if you look like this, and you must be that if you look like that. And that narrative has been deconstructed and reconstructed. The only way that can happen is if you look at your own dominant narrative. So while society has a dominant narrative, there are 4 people that I'm looking at. There are 4 narratives on this call based on your past trauma, your past experiences, the racism you face, the discrimination you face, the privileges you've had, the things that just come to you. And everyone has privilege. We don't have the same privilege. We don't have the same privilege, and we don't have the same privileges. And those are not the same thing. But everyone has privilege, right? And so when we look at this idea of the dominant narrative and deconstructing and reconstructing, it is something that needs to take place before any successful implementation strategy happens. And here's why. When we look at some of these suggestions for implementation, if you want to grow more diversity, you can target your recruitment efforts. You can run training program policies, looking at who's not there at the table, who should be included, right? So you're looking around and you're like, oh, okay, we got men and women around here. Okay, great, great. We have different ethnicities here. Wonderful, wonderful. You could tell yourself you're diverse, and that's fine. But there are some, what is the age group, right? How does everybody identify? What are their passions? What is their goal for the organization? Are they money first? Are they relationship first? What do they think is the most important thing? Is it the bottom line, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do to do some initiatives. And if you embark on those initiatives without exploring your own dominant narrative, when you get the responses back, you're probably not going to be prepared on how to adjust and receive those responses. So it's not that it can't work, but you might prolong your efforts to grow in diversity because you haven't done the deconstruction and reconstruction work with yourself first. When you look at belonging, looking at doing cultural competency training, and it says on there, looking at dialogues to create safe spaces. You can create affinity spaces where people share and talk in circles. And certainly those are things that our organization does for a lot of different organizations. Here's the thing with belonging. Here's a thing that I didn't put on the list because I wanted to say it face to face. Some things are so simple that we overlook them. If you want to know if you need to start or implement a belonging initiative, ask people if they feel like they belong. Yeah, before you just walk away and say, oh yeah, that's great. Now let's see, what are the top 3 initiatives? How about you just ask your people how they feel about the membership that they have? Do they feel included? They might feel represented, but they might not feel included, right? So it depends on the question you ask. I can feel represented. I can feel that there are enough women in leadership, and that does not mean that I feel like I belong. I feel like the organization has a bunch of women in charge, and the 2 men in charge don't listen to the 8 women that they have sitting around them. That is a realistic feeling that one could have. I can feel that we have a very diverse and we have great representation of age and creed and color and belief. But there's only 4 people sitting on the board and they make all the decisions. So I don't feel like I belong, and that's why I don't show up, and that's why I don't even give feedback, because even when they ask for my feedback, nothing really happens from that. So one of the best ways to get a gauge on if you have a culture that encourages people to feel and become included and take ownership is to ask them themselves. You're going to get much more valuable information than any of these sessions that I could ever put together or produce. These are just tools. It doesn't give you the right questions. Any thoughts or comments on any of that? I'm going to wrap up here shortly. Got one more piece to hit.
This is Andrea. I was gonna say, regarding the diversity versus belonging tip, the school that my son went to in high school was a Seventh-day Adventist school, predominantly white, and they had a big push to increase their roles, right? And so they had a big Asian contingency, a big Rwandan contingency, big inner city contingency, and they got all of these new students, and had no plan to foster belonging. It was the most amazing thing to watch. It was an amazing thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing. I can share an anecdote from my experience as an administrator in a faith-based school environment. At one of the larger schools that I worked at, we were seen as a predominantly white, affluent school. Since I worked there as an administrator, I knew the numbers did not match, right? So our Caucasian students or white students, we had close to 400 students. Our white students, we had about 130. The rest was picked someplace from somebody from someplace, right? So it was not a predominantly white school. It was a predominantly diverse school. And what I had to get our staff and the board to understand is you are only as diverse as the leadership in your school. So our teachers were 80% white. So if you don't have diversity, right, this is how they go together. If you don't have representation in your leadership, the membership, as Daryl outlined before, that's just the outcome of membership. These are the people that decide to go here, and now we're diverse. But we're not going to be best equipped. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but we're not going to be best equipped on how to even approach diversity because we don't have enough representation that when we ask the question, we're getting diverse answers back on how we implement. Right? So you got to keep that in mind as well. Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, it becomes a powerful recognition when you're talking about belonging, right? And so there's a phrase that you used that individuals may know, and you did give some definition on it, but we're talking about the dominant narrative. Okay, and so when you're talking about a PWI, right? A PWI, that is a predominantly white institution. And then you have an HBCU, which would be a historically Black college or university. And then you have a Hispanic institution, okay, HSP, I believe it's called, something like that. And so what I'm saying is, when you're talking about those schools that are targeted toward a specific demographic, they have the same belonging problems that everyone else has, because they often forget that what they're wanting is membership without actual participation. And when you want membership without actual participation, what you really want is dominance. And you create a dominant narrative based on who is running the organization. And so the dominant narrative is who is in power, and power defines the level of participation, not membership. And if you are in power and you want to increase the participation, you must cede power to the membership. Those who will not cede power will never get participation, because it's a trade-off. It's like, muscles, right? You have biceps and triceps. Okay. And if you will not let one of those go, that is the power, you will never get participation. They work in tandem when they work well, and when isolated, yeah, you have a lack in one or the other.
That's good stuff, Daryl. Appreciate that. That is excellent. And to your point, I can speak to even my own family dynamic, my extended family. So my extended right family has the same issues of belonging as any of the organizations we talked about. And you just outlined what some of us have tried to communicate to those in power, that if we don't start ceding, what you still have is dominance. Because even though I am genetically a part of the family, I don't feel like I belong, because the dominant narrative doesn't speak to who I am and makes me feel like I shouldn't even be here. And so, yeah, so that's good stuff. All right, I will close out with this here. Everything that we've talked about and shared has been great, but there is another side to that. And when we look at implementation and how we want to move forward and what we want to do differently for ourselves, then there is the other side that you need to be prepared for. And so here are some things, and this is just a small things to think about based on the 4 outcomes that we had. Some might argue that focusing too much on belonging could dilute the emphasis on diversity, right? So if we're going through and trying to make sure everybody is okay, not okay, but feels like they belong, right? Then we're not, spreading it out into a place where it can be perceived as, well, if we're okay, then we're okay because we're all pretty much the same, right? That goes back to what I was saying before, on asking who's not at the table, right? So if we just focus on belonging, then we look around and we see this group and we say, oh, okay, it's 2 males, 2 females, got some different hues there. So, okay, we all belong, we feel good, but we don't, where is the age? Where is the direction? There's a lot of stuff in there. While fostering belonging is essential, there's a risk that it could create an echo chamber where dissenting opinions are discouraged. And so that then becomes what you look at when you think of groupthink, right? And so because we get along so well, I don't want to be the one that messes things up. And so be prepared for that. If all you're talking about is belonging, 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 cultures are created either intentionally or unintentionally. So next one is, some may contend that belonging can be overemphasized to the detriment of performance. This depends on the organization that you're at. Usually high power metrics based places. If you're focused on belonging and there's not enough bottom line, you're probably going to get pushback. It doesn't mean you should stop. It means you need to balance that in how you roll it out. And then lastly, critics could argue that the initiatives aimed at belonging, such as employee resource groups and mentorship programs, can sometimes lead to unintended segregation within the workplace. And that has to do with what Daryl was talking about when you have these cliques, right? And so everybody comes to belong, but you're not intentional about it. And so now everybody's just waiting on the other group to do it, right? What comes to mind is a church. Church is full of members, but the members in the congregation, they're volunteers. They just wait for the volunteers that are on the board to do stuff. They just wait for the ministry leaders to do stuff. They're all members, just one has a title. So they don't feel like they're a part of the title group. So they just sit back. And so sometimes those things run in that direction. All right. That is what we wanted to cover as it pertains to diversity and belonging. And so as we check out, just go around. One thing that you gathered, you appreciated, you learned, you already knew, but was reinforced, however you want to qualify it. What are your parting thoughts on the experience or the topic, anything you have?
There you go. I'll start. Am I still muted?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, gotcha. All right, gotcha. And what I wanted to share was the reality is that doing nothing and doing everything will probably get you the same result. If you do nothing, then things are going to happen without you. If you do everything, then you're going to be spread so thin that you're actually going to get nothing done. So that the only real opportunity, as I was listening to what you shared, the only real opportunity is to do something with intentionality. Because if you do something with intentionality, then you will figure out what you actually accomplished. But trying to do everything and doing nothing will likely get you to the same thing. And I'm thinking of that from a PTO standpoint, right? That from a PTO, you try to do what everybody wants to do, then you have 2 people at 4,000 programs, and they're all failures. But you've had 4,000 programs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Set?
Yeah, I like the distinction between diversity and belonging. It almost makes it for me a step 1 and step 2 process. So making diversity the step 1, and then of course belonging the step 2. So it kind of goes together. But I like the division that was formed because a lot of that can be kind of intertwined and confusing or gray, and it's not as identified. And so just because you did something under those quotes, it gets categorized and you're the problem. So yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. It really comes down to the organization. What type of organization do you want to be, and who do you want to be it with? And if you don't work at broadening that out, your organization is just going to be you sitting at the end of a table someplace, hoping that other people that you can find one day that are just like you. Only problem with that is that doesn't exist. So there's only one of you. So any other thoughts?
This is Andrea. The example that you gave of the extended right family was that was a great parallel to what we were talking about. Since I have insight into your extended family, right family, they do have a mighty work to do, I have to say. And so it was very clear in that context. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I like what Daryl put into the chat that speaks to that. Wanting membership without wanting participation is actually wanting dominance. And you think about any family. If you want your children to be a part of your family without them participating in what happens, you just want to dominate your kids. You want them to say yes to everything. You want them to go where you want them to go. You want them to do what you want them to do. You want them to see the world the way you see the world. And if they don't, and you say, then there's something wrong with you, or you're weird, or you're different, or that's surprising or stunning. At some point, you better give them an opportunity to participate. And, with that, every organizational structure has boundaries. They need to be created, they need to be identified, and they need to be adhered to. Which goes back to, if everything or nothing, right? So if you let your children do everything, then they have no parents. If you let them do nothing, then they have no parents. They have wardens, right? So it is in between there that you find symmetry. And some roads are harder to traverse than others. But those are what we're trying to do. I appreciate everyone. Thank you for joining. You can share it with whomever you want. We'll be here every Wednesday throughout the entire summer. In our summer wellness series, we have, I don't know how many more Wednesdays are left in June. I think there are 2 more, but I could be wrong. And then we will shift in July to another topic. But this has been good. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you the next time you're able to join. You guys take care.